The magic of Tommy DeVito is real. It's strong. So before we go over the DeVito storylines, okay? When I say DeVito storylines,
10 of them.
Well, I say twins excluded, okay? Don't bring up any stupid movie jokes. There's a lot of Tommy DeVito storylines.
Number one.
Rich is dead set on backups because essentially he's a backup. Yeah. We know he's a starter now, but he's a backup quarterback. But what makes him awesome is the lightning in the bottle, all these elements that are happening at once. The cutlets, the storylines, his family, the agent now. Backups need a gimmick. And Rich's whole stance is that what makes him extra popular is the gimmick, and people are buying into it. Well, if he was just Tommy Johnson, no one would really care. The fact that he's Tommy DeVito in Jersey in front of that crowd is what matters, and he's leaning into it.
The celebration of putting the fingers up, like he's calling for some prosciutto.
Yeah.
Can I get some fresh mozzarella? Like the hand signals, the agent, all the things you said build into the gimmick, and
I'd say Tommy Cutlets, the nickname, is the main part of the gimmick right now because it really sells the personality and what he's all about. And he's all about, being a mama's boy and growing up Italian, in New Jersey.
The coincidence of it is that before he was Tommy Cutlets, I took it back to my East Coast roots and I started doing chicken cutlets every Thursday with my kids. And you remember that conversation we talked about, hey, do people around the country know chicken cutlets? And Danny, I brought you in a chicken cutlet sandwich, and you're like, oh, man, this is good.
Yeah, it was really good. But we didn't get to grow up on that here on the West Coast.
Dude, it's such an East Coast thing. Spot, Covino, all of us, if you grew up on the East Coast, Mom at least once a week, no fail, made chicken cutlets.
My favorite. And some mashed potatoes and corn, maybe some ziti on the side or something, a little pasta action.
You can make chicken cutlets mainstream with like corn and mashed potatoes.
Yeah, some tater tots or something.
Or you can make it with anything. Or you can lean it Italian and go like a little more parm style.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, enough of the cutlets, but the point is
that's part of the gimmick.
Yeah,
Rich.
The point is the gimmick.
Hold on, we say gimmick loosely too, though, because
it's really him.
He's a Jersey kid, and these are kids that we grew up with. So when I see Tommy DeVito, I think, hey, that's a kid I could have went to high school with. That's a neighbor. That's a friend of mine. I know that kid. I know his family. I know the people that's cheering for him. I get it. So when I say gimmick loosely. Listen. Oh, when he leans into the Italian-American soprano style of vibe, I think that's very real, but it's also very gimmicky for the outsider.
It's real and gimmicky. The example would be, I have an ex-girlfriend whose brother would dress like Tommy DeVito's agent at a wedding. And it wasn't in irony. It was like, that's how, I'm going to a wedding, I'll wear my black suit and my fedora.
Earnestness. It's earnest.
So you look at this and you say, does a backup quarterback succeed with these two things? A gimmick and vibe and mild success. I feel like there's so many backup quarterbacks, and I don't want to drag him because he's had a pretty good NFL career, but I said to you last night when we were chatting, I said, a guy like Brian Hoyer has been around the league for years, probably one of the more reputable backups of the last decade or so. There's guys, but you don't know a thing about boring-ass Brian Hoyer.
Because he has no fun gimmick and therefore boring. I think it just adds to throw this guy in there, it adds to that spark plug element that you want from your backup. And I would say Minshew Mania would be a really great example that comes to mind right away. He's really good, but the gimmicky stuff, that WWF sort of attitude about him and persona is what really gets you fired up about him. So it makes him a star even though he's a backup quarterback. And that's not to take away from him. I just feel like that's what it adds. And I feel like a lot of these backup dudes need that WWE sort of element to elevate them in these moments.
There's some people that have a buzz about them. I don't know if it's that they're locker room guys combined with they're just alpha men. Gardner Minshew Mania, the mustache,
you need the nickname, you need the look,
you need the story, right? I mean, I'll just pick a random team, the Buffalo Bills, Kyle Allen, Blaine Gabbert is a back. Think of the backups over the years that they're just a typical, I'll be honest, a typical nerdy 25-year-old white guy name.
Mm-hmm.
Blaine Gabbert, Brian Hoyer. And again, those guys have accomplished.
What kind of name is Blaine?
They've accomplished way more than I have.
It's not a name, that's an appliance.
But think of think of the names over the years. Mike White. Like, God.
Mike Boring.
Like, could it be? Like,
chlorophyll, more like borophyll.
I'm just saying Tommy DeVito comes in with an automatic,
Right.
oh!
And like you said, you
Yeah,
need
but-
all of these. The fact, if he was Tommy DeVito, here's the question. If he was Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, playing for backup for Carolina or something like that, it wouldn't hit as hard. It just wouldn't. It's the fact that he's playing for the New York Football Giants that makes it even better. Like, man, this is what's working right now. And you have to imagine, someone said this on our Patreon today. We do a Patreon every day, Covino and Rich, Monday through Thursday, if you want to check it out. If not, you're missing out.
A little uncensored version of our show.
Yeah, one of our listeners was like, how do you think Zach Wilson feels where the backup dude is getting all this love and all this clout? Meanwhile, Zach Wilson played his ass off this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't even think we talked about it yesterday. Did we? Maybe we mentioned it.
It didn't even crack our things that made us go,
It really didn't.
So-
and he had a game.
I have a random thought, a question, and we have all our things that add to the Tommy DeVito story.
But before you do that, what we're saying, Fox Sports Radio Nation, is, yeah, he's good, and yeah, there's all these storylines, but having the gimmick and having all these elements and playing where he's playing, having a nickname that sticks is also part of the formula. So we're saying backups need a gimmick. Backups need a good nickname because that's going to get you fired up when they enter the game.
It's almost like that bench,
Otherwise,
it's
you're like,
almost
"Oh."
it's almost like that bench player in the NBA or Major League Baseball that you want to get in the game because you're sort of like him, like Super Joe McEwing, or like I'm sure there's Yankees you could think of, or like
Well, you know,
fan favorites.
We tied it into to wrestling before.
Yeah.
What made the Jobbers so weak is that they had no gimmick and they were boring. It's like Barry Horowitz.
And
Like, they're just Barry Horowitz. Who cares about that guy?
Jim Roma.
Right, no one cares. There's no gimmick. There's no cool name. Therefore, nobody cares. And you know that guy's going to lose. And that's how you feel when the second-string quarterback comes in. And maybe he's good, but it's just always better with the gimmick and the nickname.
It could be, honestly, something as ridiculous as a mustache.
Yeah. Minshew owned it. And again, it's about leaning into it and delivering. Like Rich said to start this, you have to be pretty good, too. You have to come in with a little fire, too. Then again, Heineke didn't have a cool nickname, but I think his name itself stood out.
It did, and he seemed like a very like a blue collar type of guy. And you know what? There was something to be said about a boring guy that got a nickname and people rolled with it. There's nothing exciting at all about Nick Foles, but when you call him Big Nick,
No,
then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, he's got some swag.
No,
Like,
you're right.
The Philadelphia fans force swag on Nick Foles.
He's a goonburger, but a winner who was worthy of a cool nickname to get you fired up about it.
There he
So
is,
again,
Big Nick.
backups need a gimmick or a good nickname. Otherwise, it's just boring.
Yeah. Let me pose a question that you might think is redonkulous. You might think is the stupid question of the day. And then we'll go over all the layers of this, from the food to Brian Dable to his agent to everything you saw over the last 24 hours. I
And
know
something
Perfett
called-
has thoughts as well.
Something called the Shohei Ohtani effect.
Oh, we're
is
gonna
also
we're
in the
gonna,
news.
we're gonna get to Ohtani, Mahomes, a bunch of crap today. Now, this it sounds silly, but let's say we're 1 year removed from Daniel Jones getting all that money. If this was last year, would the Giants be reconsidering the commitment to Daniel Jones? I'm not saying Tommy DeVito's the answer, but do you think Daniel Jones got that money perfectly timed for himself?
I think you already know the answer to your question.
Like, the
Yeah, I agree.
fans are so behind this guy, and I get it. He's beat a couple mediocre teams. He got crushed by the Cowboys and then got hot, right? But I really think you ask a bunch of dudes in Jersey and New York, hey, who's your guy? I don't think anyone's saying really anxious for Daniel Jones to
You
get
want
back.
proof? The proof is in the stats of how many jerseys are being sold for this guy. I don't think people are pumped to be rocking Jones jerseys. They're going out to buy DeVito jerseys. I think that's part of it too. Like, you know, Colin Cowherd said this, always stuck with me. He said something about stars attract other stars. He said the quarterback needs to match the city. You know, players that the city could get behind.
Oh, you know what else Colin said? The Dolphins are like a spray tan.
Did he?
Looks great at first, but it wears off.
Is that what he
Yeah,
said?
that's what he said today.
Oh, wow.
Star.
No, man. Daniel Jones, he's in a bad situation moving forward. when you think about, they'll put him back in and he has all the potential in the world. I mean, he also had every opportunity in the world and he has a losing record.
Well, what
happens when he starts slipping and the fans are cheering for DeVito to come in?
Cutlets!
Exactly. What happens then?
I mean, it's going to happen. So many layers, so many thoughts. Let's start with Andrew in Bakersfield. I know you want to break down some of the particulars, Cove. What's up, Andrew?
All right. So in the beginning, you were saying gimmick like as a negative thing. And then kind of turned it around towards the end. But he's just being himself. And I don't think it can be compared to Gardner Minshew with a mustache. You know what I'm saying? This is like...
No, I disagree because he's leaning into it. He even said today, when they said to him at the press conference, hey, did you see your agent who looks like something out of a movie? Did you see your agent and your dad kissing in the stands? Like, no, I didn't see it, but it sounds like comedy. And they're like, oh, you should have saw it. You know what he said? Well, hey, it's good for business. Because he knows outside looking in, that's very gimmicky to people. Even though that's very real. Look, I'm from New Jersey, right? So when I watch the Jersey Shore, I can tell you straight up, that's how it is. But other people outside looking in can't believe that.
But there's also leaning into it.
And he's leaning into
which is
that.
what people at the Jersey Shore did and what they're doing.
It is very much him. I agree. That's him. But he's leaning into it.
It's good for business.
Good for business.
He knows.
He knows they know what they're doing. That guy comes out with a fedora and pinstripe suit on. And, come on. They know what they're doing there.
Perfect. What's the popular food podcast that we played last week where the guy had Tommy DeVito on ranking pastas?
Yeah, Meals by
Cugini.
Cugini, yeah.
I mean, he's if Tommy DeVito wasn't leaning into it, Andrew, then he wouldn't be going on podcasts and video shows about ranking pastas.
I don't think anyone can blame him for leaning into it. We're
Not
talking,
at all.
you call him backup, but he's a third string. Undrafted, played at two different colleges, John Bosco Prep. Like this, if he gets an actual legitimate backup job in the NFL, that's millions of dollars. That's life-changing for his family.
And remember,
he's going to get some endorsements out of this,
absolutely.
too.
He signed, for $20,000 just to play for his hometown team. And I loved what he said at the end of the game. I think he's handling it great. Are we prisoners of the moment? Yes, of course, but it's a fun story. It's a great underdog story. It's sort of a little Rocky story going on right now. But they asked him, hey, how are you handling the success? And he said, hey. He goes, I've been playing football since I was 5 years old is what I do. And, I'm granted it's on the biggest stage, but, take it one play at a time, having fun doing it. Hey. And you got to get behind that.
He said it's a kid's game.
Kid's game.
Got to have fun. Yep.
Got to have fun. And that's exactly what Daboll's seeing. He knows he could do it. He seems very confident in him. And he had to have that mentality to come big with, a minute and a half left at the end of the game?
His team's rallying around him, too. There was a video after the game. It's like, what they call him is this guy's a little guy, but he's a big guy.
Yes.
Little guy's a big guy.
Prisoner of the moment, yes, Danny G, but it's fun. Why not?
And you know what? You got to strike while the iron's hot. So you tell me right now if Domino's, Papa John's, Little Caesars, Olive Garden, Macaroni Grill,
Ralph pasta sauce, someone.
Rayo's, someone has to come out and say, let's do a deal right now. And you can't see Tommy DeVito saying, hey, when you're having your Sunday, when you're watching your Sunday football, you know what goes best with it? Some mozzarella. The special Tommy DeVito chicken parm cutlets from Domino's.
Look, I don't want to steal
Yeah.
Perfett's story, but it was such an inspiring game last night, and it was so fun to watch in front of the hometown crowd and the agent and the dad. You were so excited, so was I. But Perfett, what did you do as soon as that game ended?
So I'm not, full disclosure, I'm Italian, but I'm my family is West Pennsylvania. It's a different type of Italian, but I still resonate with it so much.
It's still your culture. You're an Italian-American.
It's still the culture. I grew up with the square grandma pizzas and everything. Yeah. And it's, my uncles in Steelers country always talk about Franco Harris, who's probably the last great Italian-American to play football. And now we got Tommy DeVito here, and I was swept up in the moment. As soon as he completed that pass to Wan'Dale Robinson, put it in the cart. I got a Tommy DeVito jersey. throwback with the red, white, and blue. I'm a Lions fan. I'm not a Giants fan, but I have to have the Tommy
I don't blame
DeVito
you for a
classic
minute.
jersey.
And you said most of them were sold out on Fanatics.
I had to buy a 2XL. I'm going to be swimming in it.
Swimming in it,
Well,
but
don't
you
worry,
had
it's
to get
holiday season. We're eating a lot. So
That was the smallest size they had
You
left.
can wear your sweater underneath. So,
yeah,
you're fine.
exactly.
But you know what, man? You think he's the only guy that
Not
was
at all.
inspired? So many people are like, after that game, probably like, he did it, Tommy DeVito. Bought a jersey. There you have it. And then, again, backups need a gimmick, but he is the gimmick. That is him. We're not saying he's pretending to be something he's not.
But you
It's
lean
just
in.
gimmicky. He's leaning into it.